firing of Tom Thibodeau yesterday. Any follow-up thoughts on that?
So the more I think about it, and ownership was involved for sure, I also wonder about the relationship between Thibodeau and the GM. Because the way I heard it, Thibodeau doesn't love every guy on that roster and didn't love some of the moves they made during the offseason.
I can tell you he and the GM are not great because the GM just canned his ass.
Well, so right, exactly. But that could have, that could have come in theory from the ownership too.
Yeah.
But I think it was both. I think there was some sort of gap or issue there between the two that Thibodeau's almost got a bit of an aversion to talent. So Karl Anthony Towns, you put up with some of the nonsense for some of the talent. But he doesn't like guys that aren't going to fight and play defense. And the GM, I think there was an issue there too.
I just can't help but think about you. Like I just further sort of picking at your situation. You're undergun on the sideline. It's been a factor. You've underachieved the last 3 years as a team. I don't know how you could argue that. You can argue it if you want. But I don't think any of you with that roster, especially after Porzingis and Holiday come here and this iteration of it, I don't think any of you would have bargained for 3 straight, the 3 years of Joe Mazzulla, making one final, winning one championship, losing in the conference finals to Jimmy Butler and the Heat, and then in the second round to the effing Knicks. That whole 3-year thing is not exactly, I think you were all expecting more. You were. And you should. It's the most talented team in the league and only win one championship. And to lose to the teams you lost to before even getting to the finals, that's an underachievement, and I think coaching's a part of it. It was clearly a part of it in year one when Joe was inexperienced, and that, I think, came through in a lot of situations. But, okay, he's a first-year coach, young guy. There he is. Now I think what's really been exposed with him is his philosophy. He's got the wrong philosophy, and he's a numbers guy. And by definition, coaches who are numbers guy and numbers-driven and analytics-driven are limited because they just go by the script, by the formula. And we saw that with him, and it absolutely killed you this year. So you're going to go forward with him? You know what I mean? But let me give the other side to it. I think the Knicks firing Tom Thibodeau after their best run in 25 years is so them. And I don't mean that in a good way.
Right.
That's why they're a clown show organization. They break through, they have success, Thibodeau does a good job, and they can his ass. Well, of course, because you're a bunch of idiots. And that's why you're the Knicks. That's why James Dolan is James Dolan. That's why the Knicks are the Knicks. Because they don't get it. And they are going to side with a GM or a player over a coach that just led them to their best season in 25 years. That's the Knicks, and that's why they suck. And you're part of the reason you're the Celtics, a really good organization, generally, overall, a winning organization, all of that, is because you hold your water and you make more sound decisions and you're patient. And so part of me wants to say, in a good way, you're not firing your coach because you're the Celtics. And you got a clue and you're not reactionary. And you're smart and you're patient. And so you're going to grow with a good young coach. And that's why you're the Celtics. That's why you're winners. And the Knicks fire their coach after making Game 6 of the East Finals because they're losers. I mean, I do believe that. Honestly, I do. I just don't believe in Mazzulla's approach.
Right.
I don't. I don't know if he can coach another way. I don't know if he knows another way. I think he's always going to defer to the numbers because that's what he is. He comes up in this age, and he's of this era that it's analytic-driven and it's numbers-driven. I just think that's what he is. Can you develop a feel for a game? I mean, you should be able to, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, from experience, you should be able to. So this is the question I was just going to ask you. What if they think he can be, I don't want to say altered. That's but he can be worked with.
Well, you evolve. Yeah, you can grow. Maybe. I'm dubious.
So I am too. I'm not telling you I believe that.
Given how he carries himself, does he seem like a guy who's...
No.
It's a good point.
Stubborn.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Maniacal.
This is how I do my thing.
And, condescending on top of it that, you don't get it. You don't understand. Which is just, so that doesn't sound like a guy that's ready to grow or accept that his methods are not the right way. And so, I don't know. I just think the coaching's held you back. And it might continue to hold you back. I mean, the feel for the game, he should be able to develop that. But, you know, there was a time there in year one where he just never called timeouts. And so he started to, but now I feel like you don't have a feel for when to call them. You know, in that Knicks game where he runs the exact same play twice from underneath his own basket with Tatum, and he doesn't call a timeout in the middle of it when you can clearly see the Knicks are ready for it this time, and he's got time on the clock to call that timeout and get a side out and draw up an ATO and do that thing. He didn't have a feel for the game. He doesn't know when to call the timeout, even though he'll call them more than he used to. He doesn't have a feel for the game to see a 20-point lead slipping away and to call off his players to stop shooting three-pointers, like just the most obvious one ever. Because the open three is the most efficient shot in basketball. You have an open corner three, you take that every time, you kick it out for the open corner three. You don't even think about the time or the score, but I don't know, he has no feel for the game. Is he going to develop a feel for the game? So the Celtics are in a little bit of a spot with him. He's got 1 year left to go in his contract. Where's the extension? Where's the extension, Jimmy? I mean, teams are making coaching moves, right? They're firing guys, they're hiring guys. Jay Stu, do you know where the extension is for Joe Mazzulla?
I was told by Gary Washburn a week or so ago that it's coming this summer. Not to worry about it. He's a coach of the Celtics for as long as he'd like to be.
So my answer would be, when do they close on the sale?
Didn't they do it already?
No.
They haven't?
I don't think so.
The NBA
later
votes
this
on
month,
it this month.
Yeah, it's later this month. So my guess is it will come after that. In other words, the current owners, Wick's not going to do the extension now. He's going to pass that one off on Chisholm. And then, but if Chisholm doesn't act relatively quickly with an extension there, or Stevens doesn't on Chisholm's behalf, then I think we have our answer. But my guess is that we're in a holding pattern until the sale closes. If I had to guess.
Yeah.
I don't have any inside info. I'm not lying.
Yeah. No. It makes sense.
Because they would have given it to him last year, I think, but they were undergoing an ownership change,
right.
So they waited.
I mean, I got it, but let me ask you this. If the ink isn't dry, if they don't have the closing, but we get to NBA free agency or the draft, and it's time to trade your money and get under the apron, you think they're not going to do it because they're waiting for the ink to dry?
No, they'll do that.
They're going to make moves.
Of course, yes, of course.
So the coach is not, you don't have free agency or a draft day or there's no deadline like that with the coach. I just think it should be, if they're all on the same page, they should be able to say, yeah, we're going to because Chisholm wants to resign him. I just, part of the reason you're you is because you're smart and you're patient and you're not like everybody else. But everybody else has fired their coach. Everyone else that has won a championship, everyone else that has gone far. The Nuggets already have fired their coach, and the Bucks fired their coach in short order. They've gone through 2 or 3 of them. And Memphis don't even get there, and they fire their coach. And the Lakers, when they won the championship, fired their coach. And it's just now the Knicks, who just beat you, fired their coach. And you're going to keep your coach because you're smart and patient and all that. Meanwhile, he's not that good of a coach. It's just, that's the bad. The good news is you're smart and patient and not a bunch of reactionary clowns like the rest of these teams. That's the good news. The bad news is your coach isn't good. So where are you on that?
He's almost more like an accountant.
He's a button pusher. He's like,
right.